A lot of you guys have asked what it is I do for a living outside of YouTube. Some of you want to know exactly how I got started as an automotive tech, why I left Mercedes-Benz after being a master certified tech. So I'm going to answer that and much more, including how I didn't even know where to add oil to an engine just about 3 years before I became master certified. So this will be a story time video, so you can watch this on your cell phone, you can listen to this in your car, or you can listen to this on these bad boys. These are the Cove Audio Solitude Bluetooth wireless headphones, 12-hour battery life, 30-foot range, and what I love about them is how no one around you can hear how loud you're actually rocking out. Gone. Seriously guys, these Cove Audio headphones sound so good. The noise cancellation feature is amazing. So there's really no reason to spend a couple $100s on some headphones when you can get these for almost 70% off by just clicking on my link in the video description box or just going to coveaudio.com/LSC68. Okay, so when I was 16 years old, there was only one thing that I knew for sure in life, and that was I wanted to be an automotive mechanic. And I didn't do too well in high school when tasked with something that I didn't think would ever affect me in the real world, like let's say Shakespeare. I did not excel very well, but if you gave me something that I could actually apply to everyday situations, at least situations that I wanted, like working on cars, that is when I really focused in. So for me, being an automotive tech was my #1 choice. I never really wanted to go to college, so I didn't. Now the problem here was I went to a high school that didn't have any automotive shop classes whatsoever. I didn't have a dad around to teach me anything, and I literally didn't even know where to add oil to an engine. I knew nothing about cars whatsoever. Just to give you an idea of how bad this was, I worked at a few auto parts stores in high school, and I remember a guy coming in and he wanted me to match up a push rod. He wanted me to find him a push rod for his engine. So I went back, I found a box of things that looked like push rods, and I brought one out that was about a ½ inch shorter than what he had given me. And I'm like, here you go, this should work, I think. The guy started laughing. Luckily, he was nice enough to sort of explain to me what the darn thing did. But yeah, I was one of those guys behind the parts counter that would ask you year, make, and model and not have a clue what I was looking up on the computer. So at this point, I was driving my first car, a 1988 Trans Am GTA with a TunePort 350 that I had bought by saving my money by working at Burger King for about a year and a half prior. This is all I wanted was this car. I didn't know anything about it, but I thought it looked cool, so I bought it. It was a total pile of crap. The interior was garbage, and some of my best memories was going to the junkyard with my 5-foot-tall Italian mom and sifting through old third-generation Camaros and Firebirds. She was getting in there in the mud and everything with me. It was awesome. We managed to piece together somewhat of a decent interior, and then I fixed up little things like wheel caps and easy stuff like that, and that really kind of got the juices flowing in my head. And even though my mom wanted me to be a doctor or something a little bit more prestigious, I guess, she was really happy that I was actually focused on something that I really enjoyed and that was challenging at the same time. Now, towards the end of junior year of high school, I decided I wanted to sign up for an automotive tech school. I was not going to be going to college. I probably would not have done very well there. And after speaking with the recruiter from WyoTech in Laramie, Wyoming, that's where I went, I came to realize that most of the guys that signed up at the very least had a basic understanding of how a car worked, and I definitely didn't. So I saved up some more money. I worked at some auto parts stores. I actually worked for a telemarketer for a year. I know I was one of those annoying guys, but it paid really well. And I saved up enough money. I sold my 88 Trans Am and I bought an 89 Firebird Formula 350. It was a very, very nice car in excellent condition. And I had the bright idea that in order to prepare myself for tech school, I should rip this car apart, rip the engine apart, and just basically get in there and learn whatever I could learn. That way, when I showed up 2 weeks after graduating high school, that's when tech school starts. It's right away. That way I kind of sort of knew what I was talking about, and hopefully I could get some decent grades. So over the next year, with the help of my friend Eric and his dad, who had tinkered with cars in his day, we took apart the Firebird's engine. So I removed the cylinder heads, sent them out to get ported. I installed a larger camshaft, some headers, and all the meanwhile, I was looking at how the engine worked, spinning it around, getting a basic understanding of the fueling system, the ignition system, and whatnot. And we actually managed to get this thing running pretty decent for about 2 or 3 months, and then I cracked a piston. So at this point, I'd already used their garage for months at my friend Eric's house, so I got the boot, and I was back at home having to replace one piston on this car. I had absolutely no money. I did this all on my back with about a $25 box set of tools from AutoZone, but that's really when I started to hone in and really kind of get the hang of things, because I was forced to get my only car running with basically no money, and I did it. I replaced this piston in my garage. I dropped the oil pan, the rod, and everything, and just did it with the engine in the car, and she ran. She ran, and that was kind of like my first success story with a car, and it really got me motivated and excited to start school, which at this point was starting in just a couple months. So 2 weeks after graduating high school, I started at Wyotech in Laramie, Wyoming. I chose to get myself the hell out of Chicago, as far away from everybody I was hanging out with here as possible, so I could seriously just focus on getting good grades. This was a 1-year program. I knew I was skipping out on 4 years of college. I was paying for it all myself with loans, so I wanted to make sure that all I did was study, get good grades, and get a good job. And that is exactly what happened. So I quickly achieved the nickname OA, which stood for overachiever. That's what my peers called me at Wyotech, because all I did was basically study for these tests, get good grades, and really try to get a good grasp of what I was doing, so I was prepared when I got a real job. And about 3 months before I graduated, Wyotech would have these career fairs, and Mercedes-Benz of Chicago and a couple of their recruiters, the shop foreman and a trainer, were there, and they hired me 3 months before I even graduated as an apprentice technician. So I graduated on Wyotech on a Friday, and I started work on the following Wednesday. But on that Monday, with a verification letter of employment and signing my soul away to a horrible interest rate on a 6-year loan, I bought my dream car, a 2001 Pontiac Trans Am WS6 6-speed manual. It's now an automatic, but I've had this car now for 17 years. I didn't care what it cost. That was one of the big motivating factors of me getting good grades, as well as that I knew that that was going to be a gift to myself if I graduated from Wyotech and got a really good job right out of school. And that's what I did. So I bought this car. I still have it today. I absolutely love it. It's my baby. And I don't know if I'll ever be able to sell it. Now, at this point, Mercedes-Benz had a program called the Elite Program. And basically what this was is you would have a dealership sponsor you, and they would send you to a Mercedes-Benz specific school for 6 months. The catch was the dealership had to pay for this school. So Mercedes-Benz of Chicago offered me an alternative. They said, Alex, why don't we train you? We actually hired a trainer. His name was Ted, great guy. We'll train you, we'll pay you. I think at the time this was 03. They paid me 15 bucks an hour. That was pretty good. We'll pay you for the 6 months, we'll train you, and if you choose to do this and we don't have to send you to Elite, which was really expensive, we'll give you a $6,000 bonus. So that was a no-brainer for me, and Snap-on had a deal at the time for Wyotech graduates that they would give you 50% off of anything, any Snap-on tool. So I turned that $6,000 into $12,000 worth of Snap-on tools, which I really needed because I basically had nothing. Now, at the same time, Mercedes-Benz of Chicago hired a few more 18 to 21-year-old guys. So this basically became like my college days. We all lived in the city, we worked in the city, and we had a blast. We went out all the time after work and on the weekends, and I had a really good time, and I learned a ton. I worked a lot, and I actually became a master certified Mercedes-Benz technician in only 11 months. So about a year prior to this, I was finishing Wyotech. A year before that, I basically didn't know even where to add oil to an engine. So within a couple years, like 2.5 years, something like that, I was a master certified technician at Mercedes-Benz, required to do anything that came into my stall, from rebuilding an engine to rebuilding a steering gearbox or a differential. I technically had to know how to do all of that. Now, did I? Not really. Now, I'll say this, I don't really agree with the way that they promoted technicians to master certified journeyman status back then. I've been out of the dealership for about 8 years, so I'm not sure exactly how they do it now. But back then, it was essentially based on test taking and a decent amount of training. They sent me out to Houston for about 5-6 weeks during that 11 months for Mercedes-Benz specific training, and I got paid at the same time. So it wasn't the Elite program. It was just sort of a la carte training that they offered to technicians for Mercedes. So I learned a lot. I did really well on tests. I mean, I'm still good with my hands, but since I was just fresh out of school, I was able to basically just plow through all these tests. I did really well, and I was able to get promoted to Master Tech status. But in my opinion, this is more traditional really at the dealership, is to be an apprentice for like 3-4 years before you become a journeyman. And this is very important. You should work with an older veteran technician for a while. Now, it worked out for me, but I just don't know if I agree with that elevation in status in such a short amount of time. Now, at that same time, I became a flat rate technician, which meant I was strictly on commission. So I got a bump in pay. And then at this point, just real brief on how flat rate works. If a job, let's say a brake job, pays 1 hour, you're gonna get paid 1 hour, whether you get it done in a half an hour or 2 hours. So as you get faster at working and more efficient, you could actually be at work for say 40 hours, but get paid for, let's say, 60 hours. Just depends on how quick you were. So at this point, I was making a decent amount of money. I picked things up fairly quick. Some of my other friends were a little bit better than me, I will admit. I had some guys that were my age that were booking like 80, 90 hours a week. It was crazy. But at the same time, I picked up the roadside service job. So for 7 days out of the week, after my normal shift that ended at 5, I would get an ML320 and then an ML350 when they came out. And I was on call 24/7. So I was the guy jump starting cars, changing flat tires for people. And that combined with being on flat rate at the dealership at the age of 19 and 20, I was making a pretty good amount of money, like $70,000 to $80,000 a year, which was fantastic considering, again, right before then, I had been making essentially minimum wage at all these random auto parts stores jobs. So I couldn't have been happier. I had this awesome car. I had an awesome job. And everything was going really well. Okay, so you might be wondering, Alex, why did you leave this seemingly awesome job? Well, I loved the job. I loved the people I worked with. I loved the cars that I worked on. And I loved everything that I had learned over the 9 years of working for Mercedes-Benz as a technician. But the truth is, I simply found a better job. It was a job that required me to work less hours. It had better health care. It had a pension as opposed to a 401k. And so what I do right now as my day job that actually starts, I have weird hours, but they mostly start in the afternoon into the late evening, is I work for a large fleet operation, a large government fleet operation. So I started there as a diesel technician, fixing anything that was a massive truck with a big diesel engine. Then I was promoted to shop foreman, and I did that for a few years. And then I eventually moved on to a light duty section of the same department as, again, the shop foreman. So currently I'm a shop foreman at a fleet garage. I manage a crew, a small crew, probably like 7 or 8 guys, and we fix light duty vehicles all night long. One of my other parts of this job is to evaluate cars. This is a massive fleet with thousands of cars, but I evaluate these cars. So my guys will bring me an estimate. We'll look over the car a little bit and figure out what it's worth as scrap metal, as an auctioned vehicle, or if we should put it back into the fleet and just fix it up. So I do a lot of evaluation of condition of vehicles and whatnot, and I really, really love this job. So a lot of you guys have been asking when I'm going to go full-time on YouTube, and that is a kind of difficult question because, again, I really like my job. It has a good pension and good healthcare system, and I have a family, so it's not... Doing YouTube is risky. There is no pension. There's no retirement fund. There's no healthcare. If you have a bad few weeks of videos that don't get viewed, you buy a project that's not popular, you're not making any money. So YouTube can be awesome. I love YouTube. It's seriously just changed my life. But to go full-time right now is a little risky for me, so I reevaluate this every 6 months, and it is a goal. It is a goal one day to just make videos for you guys as a full-time career. I would absolutely love that. So that is kind of my story in a nutshell. I hope this answers a lot of what you guys wanted to know about me. So every time towards the end of a video that I say, all right, I really need to go, I'm gonna be late for work, that's what I'm doing. I'm managing a crew of guys working on cars all night. So I'm around cars 24/7, and I wouldn't have it any other day. So with that said, I hope you guys really enjoyed this video. If you did, hit the thumbs up button, share the video, subscribe if you're new, and if you stayed till this to the end of this video, I'll give you a hint. I just got back from a trip where I bought another AMG vehicle, and I'll give you 2 hints right now. First hint is that this vehicle is large enough to where I was able to cancel a minivan for this family trip and just use this vehicle. So we flew out to where it was, turned it into a family trip. Didn't need a minivan for it. It runs a 12-second quarter-mile stock, and it's old enough to not have any kind of infotainment system whatsoever. So seriously, the Cove Solitude headphones were big time for this trip. So there are your hints. It'll be released in about a month or so. So anyway, hope you enjoyed the video. I will catch all of you guys in the next one.